Hello, welcome to the Retroprogressive Yoga Institute. My name is Swami Omkarananda. I am a disciple of Prabhuji since 1997, and for the last 25 years I have been reading, reflecting and trying to apply the teachings of Prabhuji. In this institute, the disciple of Prabhuji share their reflections on his books, lectures and internal talks. And in this particular course, I am sharing my understanding of the book Tantra, Liberation in the World. In this book, Prabhuji shares the wisdom of the tantric revelation, and because it's very, very extensive and has a lot of spiritual treasures, we divided the study on a few courses. This is the course number 1, and we are now in the lecture number 5, and I recommend to watch the previous lectures because we are building some understanding about the vision of Tantra, the attitude, the novelty of it, and how it can enrich our own search. In the previous lecture, we studied the definition of what is Tantra according to Ramakanta. Ramakanta was a Tantrika, meaning a Tantric master, that lived very close to the end of the revelation. Therefore, he had a very close understanding of what it is and how it influenced their. Now, 1,200 years after, we are trying to go back and understand better what was this earthquake of spirituality that shook all the religious order of their time, and their waves influenced so much that it reached many other religions. Now, the definition that he gave included the aspect of religion, spirituality, mysticism, esotericism, mystical experiences. And we analyze what are the dictionary definitions of this terminology, so we will make sure we talk about the same. But I promise that those are the official definitions that Prabhuji, in the context of the Retroprogressive Path, has a different view of this. And I promise to share this, how Prabhuji defines Tantra and how he sees these terms. So let's read. Tantra is a sophisticated religious and spiritual system that leads its followers to enlightenment through the cultivation of inner power. In this definition, we find the element of religion. It is a sophisticated religious system. We find spirituality. It is a sophisticated spiritual system. We find the mysticism that leads its followers to enlightenment. We find the mystical experiences and powers through the cultivation of inner power. So let's understand how Prabhuji defines religion. Religion. Tantra is a sophisticated religious system. According to the Retroprogressive Path, there are 3 types of religion: individual religion, spiritual religion, and social religion. When Prabhuji says religion, he means this individual religion, what happens in the heart of the enlightened being. The state of union, religare, it's the origin of the word religion. To reconnect is the experience of the reconnection with the source, with ourselves, with our true nature. We can call it God, but not as someone is separated from me, but as a marriage with the divinity that I am. This is what he means by religion. Now, this phenomenon of one person that reached these states shakes humanity. We have so few that achieved this state, but so much was their influence for generations, shapes all cultures, countries, inspire generations of disciples, but also inspire the society to make wars and divisions in their name. And it's important that we differentiate, because there is so much value on the true religion that if we drop all together, we will lose the value that it can contribute And it's one of the most precious things that we can to find ourselves. Let's be honest and look if we are confused on our meaning of life or what we're supposed to do. Let's look if we are unfulfilled, maybe, or empty or afraid. So we can repress these feelings and try to ignore it by entertainment, by escape, by addictions. But the path of Tantra offers you to confront your inner reality and discover that ultimately there is divinity within. The Tantra is so beautiful. It doesn't let you believe in a very distant God, but invites you to discover that it lies in you. Divinity, Shiva and Shakti are just dancing in your own reality, and you just need to pay attention. It invites you to merge between what is allowed and what is forbidden. Which kind of religion is that? That doesn't have a clear list of what we should do, but instead it invites you to be attentive to what is right for you, following your discrimination. And this discrimination is very damaged by the rules imposed from the outside. Because often we need to follow rules that their interest, it's not our awakening, but maybe our obedience, maybe our profit. And the enlightened being usually had problems with the established and social religion, because it comes to criticize, it comes to awake, to remind that we forgot what is religion all about. And therefore they were often persecuted, often cancelled, discredited, tortured, killed. This is the sad encounter between one who is awake and one that wants to keep sleeping. Must be conflicted. The best way of society to defend itself from enlightened beings is creating a religion. Is putting this wild truth, original, new, alive, into a frame. And that frame will be a frame that brings with it its own rules imposed from outside. It's just the anti-phenomenon of religion, to create an organized religion. As Prabhuji, when he says that Tantra is a sophisticated religious system, he means the individual religion. It never means the social. In fact, the social religion, he calls it religiosity usually, or institutionalized religion, but not religion. Religion is a very sacred state to aspire for. And then we have the spiritual religion, that he defines it as the religion of the disciples. Around this enlightened being, usually some people are attractive because they witness something very special, they felt enchanted by this phenomenon. They are attracted to it and they want to follow in a way that they're ready to give up everything just to follow, to serve, to learn from this enlightened being. We have these beautiful stories of relationship between Jesus and his disciples, between the Buddha and his Sangha. People that witness this phenomenon and truly and sincerely want that it will happen to them as well. And therefore they might imitate, they might follow, they serve, they try with a sincere aspiration that what happened to the master will happen to me. They are part of the phenomenon of the master because they are connected to it, they are witnessing it, and they are alive, and the master is their potential, their future. So in them, although they don't experience directly divinity, the religious in them is very authentic. We can compare this to soccer. We have this star of soccer that won the World Cup and is the best player of the world. That can be the one in whom the true religion happened. He reached the peak of the human experience. And he is admired by so many. But there are those who really want to achieve this one day. Those are the young players that go and train every day and go to him and beg, teach me, guide me, show me your tricks, how you do that, how you develop your skills, show me the path, how you develop the emotional strength required to go to the peak. Please take me with you. And from those, probably some will reach the peak if they have the persistence, the sincerity, the destiny. Those are the religious, spiritual followers. But we have the fans that come to watch the game. They might be very attracted to this soccer star or the players or the strategies of the sport, but they are not sportsmen and they don't want to be. They want to go for entertainment, they want to go in the weekends, maybe to the stadium, maybe to watch a game, but they will not change their life for that. They will not leave everything. It's not that important. So those are the religious followers that they add their religion to their lives, but not as the central thing. But then we have those who profit from all this. Those who sell the flags and the shirts and build the stadiums and sell the tickets. They don't really care which group or which club plays, who wins, who loses. It's not their. They're more focused on the profit of all this industry. And this we can compare this to the social religion, that it's more busy in profit than in what happened really. And of course, not busy in that. What happened will happen to them. So the Tantra was a religious phenomenon in the sense that was a path that led his followers to self-realization. Those who follow felt the call of the divine. And they didn't want to learn about what happened to someone, but they want that will happen to them. And Tantra especially was a path that there was a very big price to pay. So let's see how Prabhuji writes. Historically, Tantra has been condemned for its revolutionary and transgressive attitude. It is no surprise that religious orthodoxy will reject the spiritual tradition that sees no differences in caste, social status, or gender. Ancient sects such as Pashupata, Kalamuka, Kapalika, as well as Trika and Kali cults were used to being humiliated, discredited, and ridiculed. In their efforts to get rid of social conditioning, they intentionally encouraged society to reject them. The followers of the Tantric tradition were independent spiritual aspirants who were only loyal to the truth. Their conclusions, practices, ethics, and morality were not tied to any specific religious movement. Since Tantric tradition was enriched by traditions both from within and outside Vedic beliefs, the orthodoxy doubted its integrity. Hence, the Tantric tradition had to hide its teachings. Chapter 1. The Essence of Tantric Vision. The Tantric revelation emerged from within the orthodoxy. It was born in a society that was following religious principles. And from within, some brave, Prabhuji calls them heroes of the spirit, They wanted more. It's not enough to have a social religion. It's not enough to follow the rules and regulations. It's not enough to get to paradise. I want liberation. Liberation means that I need to pay the price. It's interesting to see why they didn't want paradise. Because according to their understanding, in order to achieve paradise, you need to accumulate merit. And therefore they did all these rituals that they will bestow the merit, that it will be the opening for them to the heavens, to abide in heaven. But the merit is exhausted. Once the merit is exhausted, you return to earth to perform more rituals, to accumulate more merit. And in this way you are trapped in the wheel of birth and death. It's a circle that you don't go out of it. So necessarily you need to come and suffer the human conditioning and then accumulate with your efforts and then have heaven. And so this wheel of return, this is not what the Tantrikas wanted. They want to liberate from this wheel. And how you get liberated from this wheel? This was a very ambitious and very... So for that, okay, I'm not engaging anymore in this ritual for accumulation of merit. I want to know myself. Who is the one who experienced all these rituals? Who is this consciousness? What is this consciousness? And this is how they just break from the conditioning, and they did so many reforms to the system. They embrace everyone that wanted to pursue liberation. In the past liberation, it was, I don't know, it was something of a very few, very pious, of the Vedic rishis of thousands of years before, and they wanted to reinvent the path. By what? By just breaking the conventions and experimenting with whatever it was forbidden. You know what? I will not go to heaven, but I will know myself, and that is more important, because I cannot get free from this wheel of samsara without knowing who I am. And they accept it all. And so no wonder that the Orthodoxy reject them. It's obvious. It creates chaos, it creates unsettlement, and it's also confused. And society wants an organized society with everybody's contributing to the development of the whole, and in silence and obedience. And those who are not obedient ones, they didn't did the revolution in the name of the revolution, but they were very non-conformist. They wanted much more. And then this religion was, of course, kept in secret. We talk about esotericism. It was practiced in forests, in crematoriums, in secret meetings, because what they wanted to do is to experiment with very powerful energies. Those are the energies that can make me free, break my chains, and they invoke very, very powerful spirits, and therefore it was kept confidentially. But if we take these three levels that Prabhuji explains, of the social, spiritual, and individual, we can see that it was born in the social, but then it was a phenomenon that was kept in a tradition of master-disciple relationship. This revelation was not given to the public. It was not for the mass. It was just for the disciples who committed to follow the guidance of the master. Without initiation, there was no sharing of any teachings and any practice. So they follow the path of initiation, and they were the ones who were allowed to give the initiation. It was not regular priests of religious people. They were only enlightened beings. Otherwise, they have no power to pass. They cannot make the transmission of power, the transmission of jnana, the Shakti path. They need to be connected to their true nature in order to pass on the tantric miracle. And this is how many lineages were born, from disciples that got realized, and in turn they had disciples. Now, if there was a generation that there was not an enlightened disciple, so the chain of disciplic succession was cut. And this is how most of, or all, the successions didn't survive over the years. There were invasion, prohibition, and in general spiritual decline that didn't allow the torch of knowledge to go. And today we have the scriptures, and we can learn and try to see what happened back then, and we can see how powerful it was. It was really a revelation from the relationship of Shiva with Shakti, and we see the influence that it has in all the region, including Hinduism. Hinduism embraced many of the practices of Tantra, and this is now the practical aspect of Hinduism. But the origin of this revelation was the spiritual religion and the individual religion. Spirituality. Tantra is a sophisticated spiritual system. Tantra does not exclude the material, nor does it advocate what is commonly termed spiritual. Rather, it invites us to accept the heights and the depths, the sublime and the degraded, the light of day and the darkness of night. Prabhuji writes that it is a sophisticated spiritual system, but together with that, he says that it doesn't make a division between what is called spiritual and what is material. It's really a non-dualistic path that doesn't make this differentiation. And in general, in the retroprogressive path, the word spirituality, although we use it and you know what that means, but it's not very welcome, because spiritual means that there is something that is not spiritual. And what can be not spiritual? What is matter? How we can define matter? Matter is what I perceive. It's my perception. So if it's my perception, it's not different from me, because it's my perception. Many religious paths recommend their followers to come in contact only with spiritual things in order to increase their spirituality. For example, spiritual music, spiritual books, spiritual food, spiritual people, places. In that way, they divide the things that are spiritual and the things that they are material or degraded according to their gunas, things that are rajasic, things that are sattvic. But not this path, the opposite. They experiment with everything, including the things that we consider material, because spiritual and material is a definition in your head, like every definition. We can take wood, okay? Wood is wood, it's material, yes, by definition it's material. If we use it to make a table, okay, it will be a material table, but what if we use it to make a deity? It will be still a material wood, it will be a spiritual. So we can see that it depends on the form, on the definition, on the etiquette that we put on it. But if we go to the root, we can see that behind every perception there is the same matter, which is, we'll not call it matter, it's the same, which is consciousness. We perceive in the same way something, and then the mind defines something as material and spiritual. There are other paths that says that spiritual is whatever the subject, whatever is the perceiver, and material is whatever is perceived. But in the retroprogressive, there is not such a differentiation. There is one nature that takes the role of perceiver and perceived. Like in Tantra, we have the one transcendental that takes the form of Shiva and Shakti in an artificial division, when in fact they are part of the same reality. And if we take a movie, okay, can we say that the actor is alive or it's the subject and the mountains that we see are object and an inert? No, they're both the same, because whatever it's projected on the screen is screen. So similarly, everything is consciousness, whatever is projected. Your actor, the one who experiences, or the one who is whatever is experienced, is not different. Prabhuji defines consciousness as the raw material of every experience, the one who experiences every experience, and the place in which every experience takes place. That's consciousness, and consciousness is reality. And what our nature, we are not the one who experiences. We are the consciousness that is aware of the one who experiences. And there, all the tantric meditations point to. And that's why they make so many experiences with the experiences, to focus you in the experience itself. Let's see how Prabhuji writes. When we separate the profane from the sacred, we create conflict. Life encompasses both matter and spirit, body and soul. Existence palpitates in the profane as well as in the sacred. To embark on the path of Tantra, we must abandon duality. Sex is not inferior to worship. Eating is not inferior to praying. They are different expressions of the same life, different manifestations of a single reality. Chapter 1. The Essence of Tantric Vision. What will determine if an activity is spiritual over material? It will not be the activity itself. Prabhuji writes here that eating is not inferior to praying, but whatever we determine, the quality of the activity will be our level of awareness. This path says that we can do the most mundane thing, or even experienced with the most contaminating materials. But if we are present in the one who experiences that, if we are aware, we can transform this experience in spiritual. And we can be engaged in the most spiritual activity, like praying or doing worship. But if we are not present, or if we do it with the attitude of gain, or if we are mentally programmed and conditioned to do it, it can be very sacred by definition. But for us, it will be a material engagement. So we see here that the purpose of this practice and this path is to blur the division between profane and sacred. Everything is sacred if we do it with awareness, and everything can be profane if we are not present. If to define it in some way in this path, we can say that spiritual is whatever expands your consciousness, and material is whatever contracts your consciousness or enlarge your illusion and identification. So by defining this, instead of going for a book that will define what I should do or what I shouldn't do, you need to be attentive to what makes you more aware, more present, and engage in these practices and in these experiences if you sincerely want to awake. You need to have the motivation, because if the motivation is to gain, it will be a material, no matter how spiritual it is. So you are the judge of what is spiritual and what is material by being aware of what makes you contraction or identification or nervous, and what relaxes you, connects you to your inner peace. That are the things that you are invited to engage. So you will not get definitions from Tantra. You will not get external rules from this path. You will need to be attentive, to look within yourself, to find your path, your truth, and to inquire and investigate sincerely. And that's why this path was reserved for those who show the sincerity and the capability to confront themselves and not cheat yourself, because ultimately we look for comfort, we look for gain, we look for pleasure, and if those were the motivation, you were not welcomed to this path. That's why it was reserved for initiated, those who show that they can go for the things that they are rejecting for them, just for the sake of breaking the slavery of rejection, and also restrain from the things that are pleasurable, because the freedom needs to be in the level of awareness. And without awareness, we're totally a slave of our conditioning. We learned in the previous class, our vasanas are just in charge. But if we're aware, we can decide. And because this path suggests that the way to reconnect to your source is the path of awareness, so it gives you the reins of your spiritual life. Mysticism. Tantra is a path that leads its followers to enlightenment through the cultivation of inner power. The Avadutta Upanishad says, an Avadutta lives as per his own will. He may wear clothes or he may live naked. There is no difference between dharma or adharma, sacrifice or non-sacrifice for him, because he is beyond these aspects. He performs inner sacrifices. He is a great yogi who remains unaffected even when he engages in worldly objects. He remains pure. Avadutta is the mystic. It's so beautiful to see how this path recognizes that in the moment that someone is awake, the religious principles can be a burden, because his behavior will be religious and will be unique, it will be authentic and loyal. The reason we need religions is because we are so disconnected from our true nature. And the religions come with the hope that if they will restrain our animalistic tendencies, so at least we will have an organized society. Imagine a road where all the drivers are blind. This is the problem of religion. This is the problem of society. And that's why they impose religion and punishments and try to be careful, because we don't see. But in the moment that somebody opens the eyes, many of the regulations will be relevant. It's like somebody that broke a leg. He needs a walking stick to help him to walk. But once the leg is healthy, so the walking stick might be a burden to carry. Now he might choose to walk with a walking stick because everybody does, and he wants to connect to those who are with broken legs. Meaning the mystic might choose to follow a religion and connect with those on the path by following these religious principles, because they often are looked upon as examples, and we cannot take really an example from someone who is liberated, because if we're not liberated, we need to do so much more to awake, and we cannot imitate. It will be a path of imitation. The social religion is a path that speaks about an enlightened being, but the individual religion is the experience itself. And that's why the few enlightened beings that visit planet Earth, they made such a big impact. From them, they were born religious, generations of seekers, scriptures, cultures. It's impossible to ignore this phenomenon. And imagine the Tantrikas. The Tantrikas were many masters, many lineages that they offer to the sincere seekers the possibility of liberation. So in this path, the mystics are those who break the rules of religion, because their behavior is dharma, is true, is what should be. And the Prabhuji belongs to a lineage of Avadutas. His spiritual master, His Divine Grace, Baba Brahmananda Maharaj, initiated him in the lineage of Avadutas. He saw that his spiritual development achieved such a level that he doesn't need to be bounded by the rules of religion. And therefore, he can continue loyal to his experience. And it's so beautiful to see the importance that we put in the direct experience, and the respect and the understanding that it's not about being a good religious person, but it's about opening the eyes, awakening, paying attention to our true nature. And then once you are awake, you know what is right, because you are connected to the divine will. And this is the invitation of this path. But let's see what Prabhuji says about it. Tantra teaches that the meditative state is not superior to the ordinary one. Meditations are not classified as good or bad. Tantra does not separate consciousness from unconsciousness, nor does it see conflict between them. In our search for happiness, we might realize that external position, objects, honor doesn't give me the happiness that I'm searching for. If we get to that realization, we might turn our search to spirituality. But this path warns us that if I come with the same attitude of looking for something external that will happen to me and that will give me the happiness that I look for, so we might be disappointed. This path doesn't differentiate between a good or a bad meditation. It's not bringing you to a different state from what you are now. It's a path of recognition of your own nature. And this you have already. You will not acquire it. If anything is intended to be with all the meditation and techniques and rituals, it's just to pay attention to whatever you could pay attention without all this. Prabhuji in the Retroprogressive, he said, I don't bring any technique. What technique you need to be yourself? Every technique will bring you farther away from yourself, because it will give you the feeling that you can do something to be what you are. So if I will give you any technique, it's just to exhaust your hopes, to work so hard until you give up, and then you realize that you don't need any of those. So the Tantra works a lot with knowing, but it's a path of exploration. You explore all the levels of your reality in order to ultimately realize who is the one who is aware of us. And somehow it's so obvious, it's so essential in our experience, but it's so ignored. Always Prabhuji says, you ignore the obvious. And I just point to the obvious. And it's so obvious for you that you don't see it. But you will, eventually, you will see it and you will realize it. So the point here is not to come to this exploration with the hope of gaining something different, that now it's more elevated, but to clean yourself from any hope that there is something external that I need, that I'm missing, that I will add to myself. The retroprogressive path delves into consciousness from a metaphysical perspective, transcending all religion and spiritual path. It is the discovery of diversity as a unique and inclusive reality. It is the encounter of consciousness with itself, aware of itself and its own reality. So the path of Prabhuji transcends all religion and spiritual path. So I promised you to bring his definitions of this. And I will not say that his path is religious. I will not say that it's spiritual. It's simply being. And it's so simple. that is complex. And he said, just explore your experience. Listen, philosophy explores reality, okay, metaphysics, and try to give explanations of the very fundamental question, who we are, what is reality, what is the world. And they might present different options, hypotheses, and development over the years of what could be the ultimate reality. They don't know for certain. If you don't experience, you can think about it, hypothesize, speculate about it. Theology, they are studying certain revelation, certain religion. What is God according to religion? Religion uses the belief that something happened to someone that saw and tell me what he saw, so I believe that he did so. Retroprogressive path is none of it. It's just to take the very simple and direct experience of you right now listening to these words and explore it. You don't need techniques, you don't need scriptures, you don't need to memorize. You just need to watch. And you can watch because you are watching now already. Just need to recognize. So it's close. Prabhuji said it's close, so close. And therefore he respects religions, but not as an imitation to do, but he admires those who dare to look at themselves and discover their own nature. How they did it. How? We don't learn what Buddha described, but we learn how Buddha found, because I want to find too. I don't want to listen the story from some other testimony. I want to experience directly. So the invitation of Prabhuji is for those who wants to experience directly. And if I don't experience directly, what prevents from me? What are my obstacles? And if you watch, you will find your obstacles. You will find your story, your lies, your narrative, the things that you have to hide, you will find, but we need to dare to see. I think this poem that Prabhuji wrote explains very much his attitude towards religions. So let's read.
I do not bring my palms together in front of my chest to greet you because I am a Hindu. I do it because I identify with its meaning of unity and fusion. I do not say that only God is because I am Jewish, but because it is simply reality. By saying that nothing is really something and everything is nothing, I have been considered a Buddhist. However, this is a simple observation. When I say that verbalized truth is not truth, I am thought to be a Taoist. However, I'm only expressing a simple appreciation. By exclaiming that God is infinite, I have been believed to be a Muslim, whereas I have only expressed the presence of what I truly am, here and now. By saying that it is necessary to die in space and time to be reborn in the eternal, I have been labeled a Christian, and I was just sharing a simple conclusion. By dancing, simply celebrating what I am, I have been tagged as a devotee of Krishna. In reality, I am just what I am, just as I am. Prabhuji.
We can see how he totally loves and admires the different beautiful paths. But he understands that every master did an enormous effort to explain the unexplainable and to express it in his own unique and authentic way. We cannot take the words of the master as truth, because they are not. Once we asked Prabhuji what you're talking about the truth, he said, truth? How we can talk about truth? the words cannot describe truth. Truth is something to be, to become, not something to explain. The mistake that we make when we are inspired by these masters is to think that by imitating their behavior or repeating their descriptions, I will reach what they reached. I will be able to experience myself what they experienced. But we need to understand that their behavior was just a consequence of what happened to them. And if I follow the consequences, it's not necessary it will bring me to the cause, because this behavior was not the cause of what happened. It was just an expression, a consequence. It was not an understanding. So when we see these phenomena of true religion in individuals, let's get inspired. Let's use their light. Let's explore how they did it. But let's not forget that we need to find our own path. And it will not come from words, and it will not come from behaviors, not from techniques, not from rules and regulations. Says Prabhuji that it will come from an honest, sincere observation of what is, and a sense of awe and wonder to the mystery, and a brave heart that is burning of devotion and wants to merge and dares to go within and discover our true nature. So the Tantrikas were such an inspiration of brave souls that they went for truth and they found themselves. And Prabhuji is so kind to share with us his path and to share with us this revelation that can give us a hint where to follow and then a help to find our path. So we will continue exploring this revelation in the following classes. Thank you very much. Jaya Prabhuji.